1, 2, 3, 4.
Chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now. Bang bling bling, chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now. Chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now. Bang bling bling, chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now.
You don't know the risk if you ain't carried the way. If you ain't never been down a road that wasn't already paved. Some shit I don't remember, and some I'll never forget. Ain't nobody give me nothing. Ain't nobody tell me shit. Big old drip. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your boy, Jermaine Event. Who else would it be? And this is episode 152. And by the sound of that, you would have thought this episode is called Big Old Drip. But it's not. This episode is called Catholic Priest. Of all things, ladies and gentlemen, we're calling this bad boy Catholic Priest. As I was watching Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega, what I saw in there the only metaphor, only simile that I could see was he was touching that boy like a Catholic priest, just unimpeded. We're going to talk about that later. Yes, we are. Just to touch on that little intro there, I just rediscovered that fucking masterful song, Big Old Drip, which is it's a low-key, like, it's not a classic. Came out in 2018. It's a hidden gem by T.I. It's off the Dime Trap album with the fucking featuring Watch the Duck. Watch the Duck does the fucking chorus. I don't know if y'all remember Watch the Duck. They had that song popping off, popping off. It was real popular back in like 10 years ago, my nigga. That song was real. They just came out of nowhere. I think niggas was wearing big ass like duck feet and shit like that. I was like, okay. I don't care about the gimmick. I'm trying to hear the music. Music wasn't terrible. You know what I'm saying? The music was not terrible, but I was just like, the other day at work, just digging through old hip hop. I was listening to a lot of old shit, blasting fucking Boyz II Men and shit, but I put on some old hip hop. Just old hip hop I used to listen to, and I started stumbling on T.I. And then something came to my head, like, man, wasn't there a banger on that one album? On that Dime Trap album? And it was Big Old Drip. I was like, hell yeah, that's the flamer right there. That's the fire. Big Old Drip. It's just, I don't know, T.I. started getting his preachy bag and niggas started hating on him. But he got some gems in there when he wants to. That Big Old Drip makes me feel like I should I should go check out some, whatever Watch the Duck is doing, I should check it out, because niggas clean with them vocals, I'll tell you that much. But as I said, this is episode 152. Thank you guys for being here. I'm your faithful host, Jermaine Event. This episode, as I said, is called Catholic Priest. We're going to talk about UFC Fight Night Long Island, ladies and gentlemen, headlined by Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega. We're going to talk about some other fights that I thought were pretty interesting. I'm just going to let you know. I'm not going to touch too much on other fights, but I feel like there's a lot of fights on that card that everybody should go back. And this was a good card from start to finish, I would say, but there's definitely some highlight fights that it's definitely, without a doubt, worth your time to go back and watch. We're going to talk about the situation with Nathan Diaz and the UFC, the current update on that. You know, as I usually say, I don't like to talk about MMA news, because usually MMA news is just this person tweeted and then that person tweeted back. But we got a little meat here. There's a little bit of meat to this sandwich here, all right? Usually it's just tweets, but this is actually, there are like, it's like 80% tweets. It's like 80. No, actually, it's like 40% tweets. I'm exaggerating, but their tweets are involved. You couldn't have MMA news without some tweets being involved, and yeah, we're gonna talk about that. And at lightweight 155, the champion has a name, and it is Charles Oliveira, who is set to face Islam Makhachev October 22nd in Abu Dhabi. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that. Some things that I've seen. Who's the favorite already? Who's the fucking betting favorite out gate? We're going to talk about all that. And I'm also going to give you some of my predictions for next week's card, UFC London, which is also another early card. This card starts about 11 a.m. Central Time. If you're Central Time and listen to this, people that I talk to listen to this podcast are all over the place. So it's like I can't really say that like it's just this time. Nah, like if it's Central Time, it's 11 a.m. So, so yeah, so it's an early card for me. I don't know where whoever you are listening to this podcast, just understand that if you're in the UK and you're used to those cards coming on at like fucking, I know I've seen like a lot of the people I talk to from the UK, they're upset because it's like they stay up till like 3 o'clock in the morning to watch UFC or some shit like that, and you know. And then when they get the UFC London cards or whatever, when they go to the UK, it's like, fuck, y'all gotta put these fights on early in the morning. Like, what are you doing? Like, now we're complaining, but it is what it is. It is what it is. The London crowd usually gets pretty lively. I would love to go to London and watch a show out there because they in the UK, they get rowdy out there at these MMA fights. I would love to watch a fight out there, but we're definitely going to talk about my predictions there. That card next week headlined by Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades. I feel like I can't say enough about my man Tom Aspinall. But honestly, this card next week is not a card to miss. There's a lot of good fights next week. Like, from top to bottom next week is, you do not, like, if you're me, no card is a card to miss. But, next, if you want to see a fucking good card on paper, and I'm pretty sure will deliver, that's UFC London next week. That starts at 11 a.m. Central Time, that is. And if you guys would like to follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Babylon5Pod. You guys can email this podcast at Babylon5Podcast@gmail.com. You guys could hit that like button anywhere that you're listening to this podcast. I do so appreciate it. If you guys would like to purchase some merchandise, head on over to teespring.com/store/BOFpod-shop. And lastly, I said shop there if you got at the end. Realized I was a little cut off there. I'm like, if I question how audible that was, let me just clarify. So shop, BOFpod-shop. And lastly, don't just be my Niji, be my patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/Babylon5Pod. There were some great fights this weekend at UFC Long Island. Ortega Rodriguez. There was a lot of good fights on this card. Matt Schnell, what some people are calling comeback of the year, versus Sue, I don't know how to pronounce his name. And I don't want to fuck it up. So Matt Schnell versus Sue, that was a banger. If you guys have the chance, definitely go back. I believe it ended, let me just go check. I believe, second round finish. Matt Schnell got the second round submission of Sue Mudarji. Sue Mudarji is how it's spelled here. It's how I'm thinking it would be pronounced. I couldn't really tell. I felt like the commentators were trying their best to say it as fast as they could because they knew they were going to say it wrong. But this fight was very exciting. Very, this is a casual, friendly fight here. Or maybe not, because it gets a little bloody in the end. But it was like such a great comeback from Matt Schnell. He was rocked a few times throughout this fight. Like in the first round, he was rocked. And then to come back in the second round to take that top mount and then just fucking rain down these fucking elbows, cutting your opponent. It was, I don't know, it was beautiful to watch if you're an MMA fan. It's just like, you gotta scream after that, like a fucking primal ass scream. You fucking, I don't know, like, damn, what could I relate it to? Maybe spoiler alert. Actually, I don't even know. No, I don't even want to spoil. I was gonna reference something in Barry, but no. I don't need to talk about that. Damn, on what? This shirt's crazy. I didn't realize how cool this shirt was, ladies and gentlemen. Just to babble a little bit, I took a sip of my drink and I spilled a little bit on my shirt and I was like, fuck. But I'm filming, you know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at myself. I'm like, damn, I don't see like a watermark. I look at my shirt and I'm wearing my fishing shirt. My waterproof fishing shirt. All that liquid just rolled right down. That's fucking nice. That is nice material. I never wear these shirts. Why don't I wear these shirts more often? I have two of these. I have a gray one I wore earlier to my mother-in-law's. We went to Olive Garden, actually. It was her birthday, I think, on Thursday. So happy birthday, Jane. And yeah, so I was wearing one of these shirts, and then I was like, "Oh, let me throw the pink one on for the podcast, for the Instagram, for the Insta sluts. One time for the Insta sluts. Shout out to Atlanta. But yeah, I just noticed. I was like, "Holy fuck!" I'm seeing like droplets. So you know how you see pictures of dew, nigga. Dewdrops, nigga. That's what it looked like on my shirt. I was like, whoa, what's that? Oh, shit. It didn't soak in. Nigga, I'm dry. Oh, shit. I'm hyped. That was hype. Yeah, go back and watch that Matt Schnell versus Sue Mudarji. Sue was talking about he felt before this fight that he felt like he was 2 wins away from a title shot. Matt Schnell was ranked 8th coming into this fight, so I believe him. I believe I would like to see Matt Schnell step in there against Askar Askarov. I don't believe Askar has a fight booked. I feel like he was booked. Well, he just recently lost to Kai Kara France. I don't believe he has a fight booked next, so I would love to see Matt Schnell step in there versus Askar Askarov next. But if we're going to talk about some of the fights on this card, before we talk about the main event, in the co-main event, Michelle Waterson was submitted by Amanda Lemos in the second round, and I gained so much respect for Michelle Waterson Gomez. If you guys know that I'm not the biggest Michelle Waterson Gomez fan, but in this fight, she got caught in the guillotine in the second round, and she was about to be mounted, and it was gonna get deeper, like, cause then at that point, Lemos could arch into it and really put some pressure on her, probably choke her unconscious, and yeah, it would get nasty. So she tapped, but where she tapped from on the side, the referee did not see her, but Lemos, who is a former training partner of Michelle Waterson, it immediately just lets it go. And the ref walks up like, what are you doing? And Lemos just like, she tapped. And Waterson just like admits it, just like says, yeah, I tapped. And I was like, ooh, that's all the respect in the world. All right. I don't fault Kevin Lee when he was fighting Charles Oliveira and he got choked out and then he jumped up and tried to fight Oliveira. I don't fault him because I feel like he got put to sleep. And then when he woke up, he was in a position where he's fighting. He's on top and he felt like, oh shit, I'm fighting. And he just kept fighting. And he was like, I never tapped. He doesn't remember because he just got choked unconscious. So I don't fault him there. But we've definitely seen people where the ref did not see them tap and then they kept fighting. And then the replays show like, oh fuck, he definitely tapped. The fighter A definitely tapped. And then you just see like nonstop new MMA fucking YouTube videos are like, who's the dirtiest nigga in MMA? That nigga right there that tapped. Referee didn't see it and he knew the referee didn't see it. And once the opponent let go, he beat the shit out of his opponent. There's times where that opponent went on to win the fight after tapping, but the referee didn't see it. It happened. So I've gained a lot of respect for Michelle Waterson Gomez for admitting that she tapped there. That was pretty noble of her. Gained a lot of respect from your boy, if it means anything at all. Li Jingliang gets the knockout victory over Muslim Salikov in the second round. Pretty sharp boxing. I'm pretty sure I picked Li Jingliang to win that fight. He's better than what the Hamzat fight showed him to look like. But I feel like Hamzat is just that much better than a lot of those fighters in the weight class. So, shout out to Li Jingliang getting the fight, getting the win there. He said he wants to fight Neil Magny in a rematch. He lost to Neil Magny the first time he fights. He believes that was not the real Li Jingliang in that fight. I would love to see that rematch. What the fuck else is Neil Magny doing these days? Another fight I think is worth going back and rewatching, especially if you're the judges of this fight. Shane Burgos versus Charles Jourdain. I had that fight for Charles Jourdain. I definitely felt like Jourdain took the first round and the third round. I know a lot of people felt like the first round could have went either way. The second round definitely went to Burgos. But I felt like Jourdain definitely got the third round. But I personally scored the first round for him watching it live. Felt like he did enough to win that fight, but it was a good fight either way. I would go back if you can and rewatch Charles Jourdain versus Shane Burgos. Great fight. Shout out to Lauren Murphy, who was counted out in her fight against Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate was already talking about the champion. She said she was planning to go out there and make a statement against Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy just fought for the belt. All right. She got dominated in that fight against Valentina Shevchenko. You know who else got dominated against Valentina Shevchenko? Pretty much anybody that fights Valentina Shevchenko, nigga. So, they were talking about how Lauren Murphy didn't start training MMA until she was 24. And Miesha Tate's been training martial arts her whole life. Well, to me, that means she's got less wear and tear on her. She's 38. She's only been doing this for 14 years. Aren't you fucking 36? Miesha Tate's like 35, 36, and she's been getting in these fucking competitions her whole fucking life. And she got her fucking ass beat in there. I don't like her fight style in general. I thought she looked bad in her comeback fight against the fighter who was already about to, like, I made it before that fight. My next fight is my last fight, Marion Reneau. She's like, I'm done. And I felt like she could have easily lost that fight. Marion Reneau was putting it on. I don't like her fighting style. I think the sport has passed up the style that made her a Strikeforce champion. The style that made Miesha Tate a Strikeforce champion. You know how much what's the clear thing to me that the sport has passed up Miesha Tate? Is that she used to have wars with Ronda Rousey, and she lost all those wars, mind you. But Ronda Rousey, as we look back, her striking was Horus. If anything, all that there was that intimidation factor. It was like the Mike Tyson thing going on. They were saying she could beat fucking Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match. Now they're looking back like, yo, she has no idea how to strike. She didn't know how to throw a punch. But at the time, because of that intimidation, niggas were saying she could beat Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match. At the time. And that was fucking Miesha Tate's toughest rivalry. And now we're bringing her back and she's having these mediocre performances. She had to move down. And was talking about like, I'm about to make a statement against Lauren Murphy. No, the fuck you're not. Lauren Murphy's dope. She just fought for the belt. And yeah, she got dominated. Because the same thing would have happened to Miesha Tate. But she's probably never going to get there. Unless she does like an interview with Ariel and says like, I should be the number one contender. She's scared to fight me. Unless she Juliana Peña's her way into a title shot. There's no way I see her even making it there. And if she gets there, Valentina is gonna chop that ass up. Chop that ass up. Alright? 1, 2, 3, 4, chop that ass up, alright? That's what's gonna happen. If she ever makes it there. Shout out to Puna Haley Soriano. Gets the knockout finish of Daucha Longiambula. I don't like Longiambula. Like, he's powerful, but like, I think he's just not sound defensively. And Puna Haley is just too tough and too technical of a striker. I felt like he was definitely going to get the finish there. So shout out to Puna Haley Soriano. Shout out to Ricky Simone, who took Jack Shore's O. Jack Shore coming in there 16-0 against a Ricky Simone, 20-3. I was looking at that fight. I was like, ooh. Because Jack Shore, I felt like he had some grappling exchanges where he was able to get the better of his opponent in his fight right before Ricky Simone. But the way Simone grapples, I was like, ooh, this is going to be a tough fight for Jack Shore. But I picked Jack Shore because he was undefeated. He had the momentum. So I went with him. But Ricky Simone goes in there and he takes that O. He submits Jack Shore. You heard him with the striking. He heard him, dropped him, got in there, took mount, made Jack Shore make a bad decision, and he chokes him out. So shout out to Ricky Simone. Ladies and gentlemen, shout out to Bill Algeo. Not Hussein, that I was talking about last week against Herbert Burns. That fight was actually canceled like 2 days before I went on that rant last week, and I just apparently didn't see it. But I said that guy was going to beat Herbert Burns, and Bill Algeo steps in and finishes Herbert Burns. Like, Herbert Burns is not Gilbert Burns at all. Like, he doesn't have the savage in him that Gilbert Burns does. It's obvious to see every time I see it. It's like I felt like Gilbert was the big brother who fights a lot and was tough, and he always had to like defend his brother, and then eventually he fucking made him take martial arts and learn to defend himself. And Herbert got good enough where he could beat some guys. He grew some confidence, but he doesn't have the savage in him that Gilbert Burns has. Herbert got dominated in that fight. He went for a fucking triangle and just stayed on that for way too long. And it's just, as you know, unless you're just like 1,000%, not 100, 1,000% confident you're going to get that guillotine choke, let it go. Or you're going to burn your arms out, squeezing, holding on to that, trying to choke a person out. When you know, unless you're 1,000% sure you got it deep in, it's perfectly in. Don't, let it go. That's what they tell you in fucking jiu-jitsu class. Let it go. You're going to tire yourself out trying to just squeeze that. Let that go. So he kept that fucking triangle fucking choke on for like a minute and a half. At one point, once Algeo reverses position, sweeps him, gets on top, starts beating him up, he stands up and is just like, get up. Herbert could barely stand up. And at the end of the first, before the second round, they brought in the doctor to come and check this man out. That's how exhausted he was. And they ended up in a similar exchange on the ground, and he refused to get up. It was over. So shout out to Bill Algeo. I gave that talk about how Herbert was going to lose to Hussein. He ended up not fighting Hussein, but I feel like it would have been similar outcome. As I said, that guy Hussein was grapple heavy fighter, and he was exhausted midway through the first round. He was done. Shout out to Dustin Jacoby, who gets a knockout finish, man, of Da-Un Jun. He's, or is it Jung Da-Un? I think it's Da-Un Jung. Gets the finish of Dustin Jacoby finishes Da-Un Jung via knockout in the very first round. He's probably going to get a top dude, man. That dude is solid. All right, I'm done ever picking against... I didn't pick against him in this fight because I think I picked against him in the previous fight. And this guy is just good, all right? I think maybe my knock against him was that he's just older. But he's just so fucking solid. His years of kickboxing did him very well because he's doing a great job right now. In his second stint in the UFC, shout out to Dustin Jacoby. I cannot wait for his next fight. Shout out to Emily Ducote, who beats Jessica Penne in the first fight of the card. She just chopped at them legs and really hurt Jessica Penne with these leg kicks. But she just seemed better than Penne everywhere that night. It was a real good card. If you guys did not see UFC Long Island, I would say go back and check out that whole card. I was like, let me just see what other fights on here were good other than the main event. It's like pretty much most of the fights are worth going back and watching if you're into fights. So why not? And if we're talking about Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega, this fight ended in the very first round. A lot of people said anticlimactically, but before the fight, Yair's coaches were talking up that Yair is a much better grappler than everyone's seen. He just hasn't had the chance to show it. In the very first round of this fight, they end up in a grapple exchange, and Yair has Brian Ortega's arm caught, and what it looks like, maybe he's going for an armbar or something, but he has it tight in, and it's like just he has his pressure on it. After in a post-fight interview of Brian Ortega, he said, like, my arm was in there, like, I could feel, like, tight pressure, but, like, he didn't have this or that. Like, he said, like, none of the, like, he wasn't going for a certain submission, and you can see it when the Weasel breaks it down, like, he's not going for a certain submission, but he has it tight in there. He has that arm locked in there tight. And what Ortega does is what you're taught in jiu-jitsu. You lock your hands together, and then you fucking yank it out like that, like a motion. And that's what he does. And when he yanks his arm out, when he attempts to, at least, that's when his shoulder pops out of his socket, and then he fucking just falls back like in agony. Yair doesn't attack him, and that's the end of the fight. Some people are saying, yo, it's a freak accident. But I'm saying his shoulder popped out as a direct result of Yair Rodriguez putting him in that fucking position. He said, even Brian Ortega said afterwards, like, yeah, I felt a lot of pressure, but he didn't have this or that, so I didn't feel like I was in danger. So I tried to pull my arm out of there. Right? He said there was a lot of pressure. He tried to pull his arm out of there, and boom, popped out. That's a legit win. That's a technical submission by definition. Just because it was not exciting doesn't mean it's not a legit win. And what really bothers me is before this fight, they told Yair if he wins he is next. He's the next person to get a title shot. He will fight Alexander Volkanovski next. He wins. And now Dana White is talking about Yair should fight Josh Emmett in a number one contenders fight. They never said, hey, you need to win in a stylish fucking fashion. It's got to be really exciting. Like, even if you win legitimately, is this not fighting? Is this not MMA? Did he not put him in that? Did his arm just pop out in the middle of Ortega throwing a strike? Or did fucking... Was he not attacking that arm? And Brian tried to pull it out, and then it fucking popped out. The shoulder popped out of the socket. That's direct result of what Yair was doing. And now they're talking about, oh, he might need to win another fight. Like, why does the win need to be exciting for the UFC to keep their word? A lot of people were like, well, I don't think the UFC is going to give him a title shot after that. You shouldn't think it's okay to even think that way. We're so comfortable with watching the UFC just fucking go back on whatever they've said to these fighters, these promises. They just go back in on the time, and we're just so used to it. It's just like, well, yeah, the UFC isn't going to do exactly what they said they were going to do after that performance. That wasn't super exciting on ABC. So we're not going to give... Like, it's bullshit. Don't tell me if I win, I get to fight for the belt next. And then say, yeah, you won, but I didn't, like, jump out of my seat when you won. So we can't, like, give you a title shot. It's like, no, you said I get a title shot next. Give him... Don't say you said he can have a title shot next. If he wins, and then he wins, and you're like, nah, I don't know about that. I don't know why we let this happen, and that's why the situation we have here with Nate Diaz in the UFC is what it is. Hashtag free Nate Diaz. They value him in private, and they devalue him in public. Did we hear a fighter recently talking about something similar to this? Recently, maybe it was Anderson Silva, who recently was just fucking flaming the UFC. Dana White was saying that they try to get as much money off of you. They try to make as much money off of you as they can. But once they feel like they no longer can make money off of you, they go out of their way to devalue you publicly, to ruin your marketability. This is what Anderson Silva, the legend Anderson Silva, said about the UFC. The UFC probably like 3 months ago. And Dana White was like, I don't know where the fuck this is coming from. Like, he went on this fucking rant, like, we did this for him, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you were shitting on him on his way out. Was saying how he couldn't go. You were saying, I don't want to see him fight. I don't want to see him in a boxing ring. I don't want to see him doing this. Like, you guys were publicly saying that he's done. It's crazy that this is the top of the top, right? We're supposed to say UFC is the top of the top promotion, but it's crazy to me that once they say a fighter is done, then they're like, then that's the perception. Like, yeah, well, he's done. He can't fight anymore. What if, like, if once you're saying there's lesser promotions, and these guys are working their way up to get there, and now if they're not good enough, you feel like they've degraded, they can't perform at the level of a championship level in the highest promotion. Why are they no longer valuable in a lower promotion? Why is that the case? Why do you have to say, like, they're done? And in a recent interview, you saw Dana White, when they asked him about fighting, about Nate Diaz boxing Jake Paul, he was like, let's be honest, Nate Diaz has won one of his last 5 fights. Okay, maybe his next fight should be Jake Paul. Alright? He just publicly shits on Nate. But Nate says, like, behind the scenes, they're offering him more money. They're offering, like, they keep offering him more money. He's like, no, let me just fight. Nate Diaz said he still might re-sign with the UFC. He just wants the freedom to even just make the choice. You know what I'm saying? I feel like fucking A, man. Let this man box Jake Paul. I don't understand the craziness here. But in this post-fight press conference, Dana White basically says that he implies that Nate Diaz has been declining fights. He says, it's my job to offer you 3 fights a year, and you can either accept or turn those fights down. And if we don't offer you the 3 fights, then we have to pay you. And I'm not paying Nate. He's like, and I haven't been paying Nate. And the person was like, so you're saying Nate has been turning down fights? And he's like, I'm not going to get into this back and forth. Like, Dana clearly tries to do this fucking reverse psychology. It's like, I'm not going to get into this thing where you ask me a question and you get to get the soundbite where I say Nate Diaz is turning down fights. And then we leave out of here and all the articles are Nate Diaz is turning down. It's like, nigga, you're the one saying this. You're the only person saying this. Like, literally nobody had this thought. He kept saying, like, yo, they won't give me a fight. I said, I'll fight anybody. Let me just fight next week. I'll fight anybody. And now you're saying, you're the only one saying I've offered him fights. You're the only person saying, like, you literally said it's my job to offer him 3 fights and he can accept or decline. And if we don't offer him the fights, then we have to pay him, and we haven't been paying him. So you are the only person that said he's declining fights. And then immediately after Dana says this, Nate Diaz says, I have not been offered any fights in 2022, and that he's offered to fight 5 different guys, Hamzat included. Like, they go down the list, and they just won't give him a fight because he refuses to re-sign with the UFC. They keep going out of their way publicly to shit on Nate. Exactly how Anderson Silva just said months ago. But they're still secretly hoping that he re-signs with the company. So they want him to fight Conor. If anything, that's what they're trying to wait on, is for Conor to be 100% healthy, so they can try to force him to fight Conor in his last fight. Which, I don't know if Conor wins that fight. I don't know if did Conor actually win the second fight? If we've been legit about the scorecards, I don't know. I don't know if Conor wins that fight. I was happy he won at the time based off of emotions. I don't know if he wins that fight. But it's so crazy that we see this over and over again. Dana's trying to say, I can't hold him hostage because we have to pay him. But you are holding him hostage. Clearly, just cut him if that's the case. He's publicly asked multiple times, he's doing interviews now, asking to be released. To either book him his last fight or release him. And now you're like, we're not holding anybody hostage. What is he talking about? We're not holding him. He was like, just book him. Book him right now. We're not holding him hostage. He's turning down the fights. He said, I've asked to fight Hamzat. We're not. It's whatever, man. It's that whole South Park shit. We're sorry. Sorry. That is Dana White, nigga. We're sorry. Sorry. Oh. Did we say he was turning down fights? I'm sorry. Please don't leave out of here and make all the articles say Nate Diaz is turning down fights. We're sorry. We didn't mean to put that narrative out there. We didn't mean to be the only ones to put that narrative out there. We're sorry. It's just gross. I would love to see Nate fight anybody. If they're gonna make him fight somebody, do it, because he has his mind made up. They clearly want him to fight Conor. He said no to Conor already, but I feel like he has no choice. They're gonna make him fight Conor. They're gonna fucking spike his water so he's all wobbly. I'm just joking, but they're gonna fucking they want him to fight Conor. That's what's gonna happen. If he is going to leave at any point, his last fight is gonna be Conor McGregor. The champion at light weight has a name. And it is Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is set to face Islam Makhachev. Signed, sealed, delivered. It's yours, ladies and gentlemen. October 22nd in Abu Dhabi. I was just thinking, like, well, then that means Conor's definitely not fighting Oliveira next, as he said he was. Maybe Conor should fight Gaethje next, uses jits. But I don't know what's going to happen in this fight, man. This is crazy. They got Islam Makhachev as the betting favorite coming out of this stuff. And it's pretty weird, man, with Oliveira looking the way he has in his last 12 fights. It's pretty crazy that he's the underdog outgating this. I would definitely take that bet if I lived in the kind of state where you could do those things. Charles Oliveira could definitely beat Islam Makhachev. I felt like he could have easily beat Khabib, and he said once he beats Islam Makhachev here, he's going to call out Khabib, who will be in the corner, who will be in the ring after he wins that fight. That would be amazing. I feel like that's what I want to see. But I'm happy that fight is announced. We will finally see what gets to happen here between Islam Makhachev and Charles the Bronx Oliveira. This is the fight. I didn't think they were going to book it, but this is the fight to see, and I'm happy we get to see it. Can't wait to talk about it more as we get closer to that fight, but I just wanted to mention that quickly. Right. UFC London. UFC London. Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades, ladies and gentlemen. I think... Well, I don't know what I think. There's questions here, all right? This is a pretty interesting fight because of the questions. Will Curtis Blades be able to push Aspinall? We haven't really seen Tom Aspinall face much adversity in the octagon. He pretty much walks through everyone he fights. Just absolute domination. We are the nation of domination. That's Tom Aspinall. Nation of domination. And he's been walking through people. We know Blades is a big, strong wrestler. Wrestling-oriented fighter who's known to hit you with that fucking heavy overhand. We know who Curtis Blades is. Can he make Aspinall see some real adversity? Can he put him on his back and hold him there? I don't think so. I think Aspinall is on a different level than Curtis Blades. I feel like Aspinall is either on the level with Ciryl Gane, if not better than Ciryl Gane. He's really fucking good. Alright? He's really fucking good, so I'm going to go with Aspinall here to finish Curtis Blades by any fucking means necessary, man. Any means necessary. He's just that good. That's just how good I believe Tom Aspinall is. This is a good card regardless, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to miss this card next week. It's headlined, as I said, by Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades. But in the co-main event, Jack Hermanson versus Chris Curtis was recently Jack Hermanson versus Darren Till until Darren Till got a brand new injury and had to pull out of that card. Had to pull out of this fight, unfortunately. But we get the action man, Chris Curtis, stepping in to fight Jack Hermanson in the co-main event. That's an interesting fight. That's a fight you guys want to definitely watch out for. You got Paddy the Baddy Pimblett in his return fight against Jordan Levitt. That's a hype fight right there. A lot of, like, two big prospects. You guys will see who I pick if you guys follow me on Instagram for that one. At light heavyweight, Nikita Krylov versus Alexander Gustafsson, who's moving back down to his right weight class, thankfully. You got Molly the Meatball McCann versus Hannah Goldie. You got the Bear Jew Paul Craig versus Volkan Ozdemir. Can Paul Craig break out into that, like, upper echelon of fighters at that class? That's the test you get here from Volkan Ozdemir. And on the sorry about that. On the prelims, you got Nathaniel Wood versus Charles Frosa. That should be a great fight. Makwan Amir Khani set to return against Jonathan Pierce. You got the prospect Muhammad Mokaev in his return fight against Charles Johnson. I looked into this Charles Johnson guy. It's his UFC debut. We don't even have a picture of him on Google right now. Or at least right here when I'm looking at it. But I believe this is going to be another showcase for Muhammad Mokaev. Ladies and gentlemen, definitely check out Muhammad Mokaev at UFC London next week. And another couple fights. Mandy Baum versus Victoria Leonardo. That's a fight to watch out in the first fight on the card, ladies and gentlemen. Claudio Silva versus Nicholas Dalby. That's some bangers all throughout this card next week, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a card to miss, UFC London. Alright, it's not a card to miss. I certainly will not. It's real random. I joined a league with people in the MMA community on Twitter on DraftKings, but when I tried to play, like, submit my roster, it was like, yo, you have to verify your identity, which I hadn't done. I guess I did it on my old DraftKings account, but not this DraftKings account. I have a different DraftKings account. And when I did it, it was like, yo, you already have this identity on with a different email address. And I did the whole thing like, yo, I don't use that old one. I like signed in and shut it down, apparently. How they had me do it. And then when I go to log in to DraftKings, it says my account is now locked. So I joined a fucking league, which I thought was pretty cool. I hope I don't know what's going on. I don't know how long I'm going to be locked out of it. I can't even do DraftKings at all right now. So I don't know how long that's going to be a thing, but I can no longer do DraftKings. That was one thing that I'd like to do every week. This is not a state, as I said, with fucking it's a sports book. We don't have a sports book yet. I think in 2023 they'll get one here at our casino, but as of now it's illegal to do those things, so and it is what it is. I don't know what that's about. But anywho, thank you guys. If you guys want to follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Babylon5Pod. You guys could email this podcast at Babylon5podcast@gmail.com. If you guys would like to hit that like button anywhere that you're listening to this podcast, I appreciate you guys so much for making it this far. If you guys want to cop some merchandise, head on over to teespring.com/store/BOFpod-shop. And lastly, don't just be my Niji, be my patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/Babylon5pod and be my patrons. Thanks you guys so much once again for being here for episode 152. Catholic priest Yair Rodriguez was touching that boy at will like a Catholic priest. I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you when I see you.
Chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now. Bang bling bling, chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now. Chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now. Bang bling bling, chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now.